That's where I love something like InBody because we sit down, we get hard data, we have a conversation of where someone's at, and then we're able to quantify it over time. Our members are doing it every 90 days. It serves as a huge motivator and an inspiration, and then also a reality check sometimes when people are like, "Oh, I'm doing all this stuff. I don't need to eat good because, this is helping my inflammation." And then it's like, "No, you still need to make good decisions."
Welcome to Beyond the Scale. I'm your host, Bradley Davey, and today our guest is Heather Hiniker. Heather is the founder of the Ascent Collaborative and Ascent Certified Technologies, two companies at the forefront of cellular health, human optimization, and advanced wellness technology. After being diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis in 2008 and refusing to accept the prognosis she was given, Heather immersed herself in adaptation science, regenerative modalities, and bioenergetic technologies, ultimately achieving full remission and building one of the most technology-forward optimization centers in the country. Today, she helps clinics around the world integrate advanced wellness technologies and measurable health strategies through real-world clinical experience and outcome-driven implementation. If you want to catalyze your growth with InBody's ecosystem of health assessment tools, this episode is for you. Welcome to Beyond the Scale. Heather, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Bradley, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Well, take me back. Let's hear your story a little bit first. Take me back to 2008 and what was happening in your life when you received your prognosis of the rheumatoid arthritis?
So I had been in the mortgage industry since 1998, pretty much in the heyday, right? I was in my 20s and I was making well over $1 million a year. And I really just at the time thought that's how my life was always going to be. And God had a different plan. So obviously in 2007, the mortgage industry crashed. And along with it, my entire life crashed. I had given birth to my daughter in 2005. So that was definitely the light of my life at that time. But just everything else around me, my career, my identity, my marriage just kind of crumbled along with it. And within probably months of all that happening, I started to have joint pain in just random places. When the mortgage industry crashed, I decided to dip my toe into real estate. So I'd be doing open houses and the balls of my feet would hurt so much. And my middle finger, for some reason, really hurt a lot. And I remember it was so uncomfortable that I'm like, I should probably get this checked out, having no idea or any inclination of even what rheumatoid arthritis was at the time. I'd always lived a pretty healthy lifestyle. I was very fit, healthy. So, getting all my blood done and everything. And when it came back of you have a progressive degenerative disease, Western medicine wants you to go on low dose chemotherapy. At the time, I was in my mid-30s. And again, my daughter was just in preschool or not even in preschool yet. And something in me, grace of God, said, let's see if there's another way we can tackle this before going on to low dose chemotherapy in your mid-30s. And I went down the deep dive. I mean, you name it, I was doing it. And I think I've told this story. I was going away to crazy retreats for a week, fasting. I would be doing wheatgrass enemas, different Chinese herbs. At the time, technology and the term biohacking obviously didn't exist. There weren't centers that were actually focused on frequency-based modality. And so I just kind of went down this deep dive, knowing that it was going to probably take a village to figure this out. And, I would notice a difference in my inflammation when I would fast and when I'd stay away from particularly gluten. It took me a little while to figure that was a trigger. And then, it was almost like an up and down. I'd start feeling better and then, I'd have another flare, even if I stayed away from gluten. And I was getting very close to having to go on some kind of medication because just quality of life was pretty unbearable. And then also being a single mom, getting up in the morning, trying to get my daughter ready for preschool. I couldn't even dress her. There was a time I couldn't wash my own hair or put a bra on. I was really debilitated. And so my brother asked, why don't you come to a barbecue with me? You seem pretty bummed out right now. We're going to have a poker game. I love poker. And so we went over and I was sitting next to this guy at a poker table, taking their money, by the way. And I remember listening to him and him talking about this technology that's going to be coming to Orange County in Costa Mesa and how his father had invested in this company. And it was called a CVAC pod is what he was securing himself And he started to talk about how there were small studies in regards to inflammation and pain from fibromyalgia. And I knew enough to know that fibromyalgia was an autoimmune disease at the time because actually my mom was diagnosed with it years earlier. And so I said, "Is there anything on rheumatoid arthritis?" And he's like, "No, but isn't that inflammation? Isn't that autoimmune? Isn't that pain?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so he goes, "It's going to be here in a couple of weeks. Why don't you come try it?" And I had nothing to lose because literally I was this close to getting on, first they want you to try methotrexate and, I was already on prednisone, which is really not good for you. And so I started to go in to this crazy CVAC pod. And when you're in that much pain, there wasn't much anxiety about getting into the pod for me. I'm just when I'm all in, I'm all in. So I was that kind of person that, you know what, I'm actually going to give this my best try. I'm going to go every day. By the grace of God, that pod was probably about 5 minutes from my house at the time. And so I started to go in every single day and sit in there for an hour to 2 hours. And I noticed pretty fast that the inflammation within different areas of my body started to dissipate. So at that time when I first started, he had secured a small little office on a second floor, and there was really only stairs to get there. And it was so hard for me to walk up the stairs. I couldn't actually wear shoes. I was wearing flip-flops or Birkenstocks at the time. And I noticed one day sitting down, I could see the veins in my feet again because my feet were so inflamed. I could not see any veins. And so I knew the inflammation was going down. Then all of a sudden, oh, my knees, I'm walking upstairs again. My hands and wrists took the longest, but within a series of 6 to 8 weeks, the inflammation had dissipated so significantly that it really opened my eyes to this world. And, I was so enthusiastic about it because what do you do when something has changed your life? You don't keep it to yourself, or at least I don't. So I just started to talk to everyone about it. I'd be at Mother's Market in Costa Mesa and someone was in line talking about their inflammation or their arthritis, and I'd share. And so I started to bring a lot of people to him. And he was like, "Geez, I haven't seen someone have this influence." And I'm like, "I'm just sharing from my heart," And so people would come in, and we started to see the pattern of inflammation dropping. And so he actually asked me to go into business with him. He had the one pod in this tiny little office. It was literally an office with two desks in it and one CVAC pod and two waiting chairs. And I was really naive at the time. But my heart led me to, okay, let's go without any contracts, any even discussions of how we're going to do this. And I, again, went all in. Within a few weeks, it became pretty apparent that our work ethic was different. And so within probably about 3 months, I ended up asking him if I could buy him out because I knew that he really wasn't going to be taking this serious. He was basically gifted the pod from his father's investment. And so I ended up buying him out, acquiring a second pod, and then really taking a leap of faith. I mean, I changed the business name from what it originally was. This was so when I first used CVAC, it was 2009. And then when this happened, it was 2010. So it was I would say it was about 7 months from start to finish of starting a new business. And what I originally envisioned, and I don't even think I've ever shared this on a podcast, but I envisioned like having 6 CVAC pods. And that's it. Because at that time, no one was talking about red light or PEMF. There's definitely no ways to quantify things. There may have been, some vibration technologies, some sound technologies. Obviously, PEMF existed, but it wasn't a word that people would talk about. And I had no idea what it was. And so going into it, I'm like, okay, I'm all in. Because I was so successful in the mortgage industry, I actually had a nice 401k. There was about $500,000 in there, and I took the entire 401k out and paid the penalties. So a third of that money went to the government. And I mean, I thought we would have a line around the building, but I learned really fast that I'm not a doctor, and nor do I want to be. But I am very limited on what I can say and what I can talk about, what I can market. And so what I could market was to professional athletes, because professional athletes, no matter what year it was, they're always looking for the leading edge. And so we really, the MMA, UFC community, Bellator also at the time, really embraced us. And so we were getting all the MMA girls and guys in. Also, motocross was a sport that really, because I think both of those sports are probably the most extreme sports, that you can go through. So they're really looking for recovery components. And so they were coming in and they kept us afloat. I probably blew through that Okay, within 2 years and was literally living check to check, just, I mean, leaning into God and knowing that if I was doing the right thing, that I would be able to continue to do it. And if I got behind on rent or anything, well, then maybe it was the answer that this isn't flowing the way it should. Always by the grace of God, He just kept things going, kept introducing me to the right people. When I first secured that space because of my grandiose ideas, it was Newport Beach, 3,500 square feet. My rent, I think at the time, back in 2010, 2011, was about $12,000 a month, which today that would be amazing because rents have gone up so much. But then it was a lot. And so that money went really fast, with all the overhead and everything. But fast forward, with like 2016, we were just barely eking by. I was not making any money whatsoever. But there was some local practitioners that had kind of aligned myself with some networking events, that would refer people over. I started to sublease some of the rooms, not as the collaborative that we are today, but just with whoever would help me subsidize this rent, right? And then I was approached by a couple of manufacturers to have their technology in-house. One was brain technology that actually helped with anxiety, depression, and insomnia, called Nexalin. They're still here around today. And then the other was like whole body vibration, which was great because it helped with ear clearing from the CVAC pods. And then, 2016 came. I was still not making any money whatsoever. We were just kind of staying afloat, and I was able to pay for my personal expenses and still living off my savings for rent and my daughter and raising her. And one of our athletes introduced me to the first PEMF that I had ever experienced, and I was looking for ways to complement what the CVAC process does. And I tried it. I knew that I wanted one for myself eventually, but not having the means, I'm like, cool, I'm going to bring it in and see how our clients like it. Well, it was such a surprise because the CVAC process originally, there was a lot of hand-holding associated with that. For people to actually respond, they weren't like me going every single day, right? And it's a buildup effect. So most people would come once a week or twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, but it would take weeks and weeks to actually realize. And at the time, we didn't have anything to quantify, right? I'm not a doctor, so I'm not taking blood. I did not have an in-body at the time at all. In fact, I don't even know, when did in-body come about? I don't even, you know?
96.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it's been for a while. For those that don't know what CVAC is, can you define that and talk a little bit more about the process?
Yes. So CVAC stands for cyclic variations in adaptive conditioning. And it's almost like an egg-shaped pod. So when people see it, they automatically assume it's hyperbaric. It's actually very different. So on a cellular level, on a physiological level, it has lot of the same benefit that hyperbaric does, but hyperbaric is a high pressure environment that basically takes you to a certain atmosphere. And then once you're there, it starts flooding you with that high pressure oxygen, basically, to penetrate into the tissues. Whereas CVAC is a low pressure environment and it's very dynamic. So instead of just taking you, and it's going up in altitude, not down, right? So instead of taking you up and leaving you, it's constantly going up and down. So that's the cyclic nature of it. If you actually take like an empty plastic water bottle, I always give this visual because you can actually understand what it's doing. The whole time it's expanding and contracting. Well, that's happening to every cell in the body. So because it's so dynamic, that plays a huge role in working with the lymphatic system, working at the cellular level with each cell to flush out what's not supposed to be there. So waste, toxins, which is actually the start of inflammation. It really helps clean the slate, if you will. And then the high altitude component, your body is very smart. So it wants to become stronger and it wants to adapt. When you are exposing it to high altitude, it knows that it automatically needs to produce more red blood cells, which are your oxygen carrying cells. There's nothing artificial or chemical employed with CVAC, so it's a very natural effect of what's happening. Within 20 minutes, you can actually go through 300 to 500 pressure changes within that short amount of time. And when someone first starts the CVAC process, they start very low, obviously, because we want to make sure their eustachian tubes are able to clear. Higher is not better with any technology that we have, actually. And I think as humans, we're conditioned to think that I need to get highest. I want to go to the highest. So that's the best. But with technologies like this, it's listening to your body is the best. And sometimes lower is where the magic actually happens, because you got to think with CVAC, the lower you are, the more up and down that you have, because it takes less time to get up and less time to get down. But if you're climbing to 22,500 feet, it's going to take a while to get there, and then it's going to drop down. So doing a combination of high and low, once your eustachian tubes are able to withstand the pressure changes, is actually really where the magic is. I think what sets us apart as well, because we've been doing it so long, our protocols are proprietary, right? We know what works for each instance, and it's a lot of just communication with our clients. We're very individualized. It's not cookie cutter, one size fits all. There's a very responsible way to introduce clients to certain technologies. And now, knowing what I know today, CVAC might not be the one to be the best to start with. It might actually be too much for someone that's very sick or toxic. But down the road, I mean, I know with all my heart, everyone can benefit from the CVAC. So that's how I got started.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. You talk about adaptation, and both of your businesses have the word adaptation in it. So I'm curious, what do you mean when you use that word biologically, philosophically? How do you relate to that? And why
So
is it so important?
both when we first started Ascent, again, there's not a term like biohacking. Like, so I started the business with the name, and the name, I mean, there's a lot that goes with it, especially when you visit our brick and mortar, but no one was really understanding what was going on. So early on, I changed the name to Ascent Adaptation and Regeneration Center. We have actually just now changed that again, because truly our brick and mortar has turned into more of a collaborative. And so now we're at the Ascent Collaborative. And then my other business with the consulting, distribution, and sales is Ascent Certified Technology Incorporated. But adaptation, I mean, that's our bodies. I mean, you think about the professional athlete level, they're trying to always push themselves. So the body adapts, it becomes stronger. The body is so smart that it actually can compensate for things that it needs and should eliminate things that it doesn't. Today's world actually makes that a little bit more difficult. So I feel like that's why a facility like ours is necessary, because there's no escaping what we are being bombarded with, whether it be the air we're breathing, what's coming down in the air, the EMFs, the water we're drinking, some people's diets as far as the processed food. And the earth does provide the natural energies that we need, but today's society doesn't even allow for us to be exposed to that. You think about, what are most of our shoes made out of? Well, the shoes are blocking the magnetic field of the earth. People are usually inside. They're not being exposed to the elements of, the vitamin D and the sun and the benefit that light gives. And so to have a facility like ours that are incorporating different frequency-based modalities to help assist in that adaptation to become stronger, that's really where that word stemmed from. Kind of a long way to answer it. I just, it's funny because whenever I would tell someone the name of my business, Ascent, Adaptation and Regeneration, you could tell it was confusing to them. And so now when someone asks me, what do you do for a living? I say I work with technologies, different technologies. We have 17 that work at the cellular level within different components of the cell to help reverse age, is basically. And so in the over 16 years that I've been doing this, we've really found that there's some main contributing factors to cellular optimization that actually will help assist the body to kick in what it really wants to do, which is heal itself and regulate. God has already given us the gift of, and all of us to be able to do that. Today's world makes that difficult. So if you do hit each one of those components of the cell, the body will kick in and regenerate.
Why do you think so many people feel exhausted or disconnected, kind of maybe a nervous system in survival mode?
Because we can't get out of fight and flight. I mean, right before we jumped on this call, I was sharing that I'm so excited to go off grid, to disconnect. I don't feel that the majority of us take the time to do that. We're in fight and flight. We're just going. We wake up first thing in the morning. We get our phone in front of us, start doing emails. No one's really taking the time to allow the body to heal, or even just like a little tiny reset or just rest. Most people's sleep is so compromised too. I mean, a lot of us now have, mine's charging, but I usually wear an Aura ring so I can see where my deep sleep, sleep, where my HRV is. Most people, when they start putting one of those on, and if they're not doing things that are assisting in cellular health, they're a mess. So sleep plays a huge role. Diet's playing a huge role, but just the society we live in. I mean, you cannot go into a big building without being bombarded by really crazy EMF. Our world today, the earth, there's certain frequencies that our cells need to be exposed to. One is the Schumann resonance, and you used to be able to detect that if you were standing on the grass. Today, you can't even detect that specific frequency unless you're in the middle of the ocean, where there's no big cell towers around. You think about, most people put their phones in their pockets all day long. You're not even disconnecting from that. Or, holding your phone to your head is like so crazy. And so, I mean, I think I take for granted, like, I don't do stuff like that just because I know, right? But you look at the majority of our nation, they're just getting sicker and sicker because they don't know. And then they're also eating the food, they're drinking the water, they're breathing the air. So I just think, to start kind of recognizing just some of those basics. And then as, we age, I'm going to be 50 years old this year. And my cellular health, and thanks to the in-body, I've had an in-body since I was 40 years old. My cellular permeability, my phase angle, has consistently gone up. So on a cellular level, a biological level, I'm probably, I kind of look at things, I'm probably 5 years younger in better condition than I was even at 40 years old. So that age reversal, and it's not something that happens overnight too. We all want that instant gratification. That doesn't happen. I think it's just consistency of trying to make the best decisions. I try to do it 85% of the time. I have fun 15% of the time. I indulge in food. If I want to eat something, it's usually not something sweet. That's not me, but I love good sourdough bread. I love wine. So like those are the things that I indulge in. But for the most part, I'm making good decisions. I don't go to fast food. I don't eat processed food. And, seed oils, most of our nation doesn't even know what a seed oil is. I look at the package to make sure there's no seed oils in there, just like simple things. But if you were to talk to the normal American, it wouldn't seem simple. It would be overwhelming. So I think just the early conversations of things that you can do, without obviously having to come to somewhere like Ascent. Ascent today really truly exists for people that have either given up on Western medicine or Western medicine's given up on them, or also the people that really want to take their health and longevity to the next level. They're already making a lot of good decisions in regards to what they're putting in their body, their lifestyle, but if they want to take it to the next level, they're coming to somewhere like Ascent.
Take me inside the Ascent Collaborative, and what do my senses experience when I walk in the door if I've never been in there before?
I am so proud of our facility. So we expanded in November 2024, almost 2 years ago. We went from about 1,800 square feet to 4,200 square feet. And at the time in the 1,800 square foot, I had brought in a couple of practitioners. One at that location really specialized in body work with professional athletes, and then also a frequency-based practitioner, one of the number one in the world today. And so they each had their own small room, and then we had all the same technologies we have today, except we've definitely expanded. Today, we have that 4,200 square feet. Within our facility is all of our technologies. So you got to think, like with the CVAC pods, most facilities that have a CVAC pod. So this is an interesting fact, actually. There are only about 70 CVAC pods that have ever been made in existence, and only 25 open to the public. We have 3 in our facility in Costa Mesa. And so, most facilities that do have one, so what is that? 2 others out there open to the public, they have one, right? Except there's a place in Canada that has a couple. So 3 CVAC pods. We have 2 full body red light beds, which are class 2 medical cleared. They're the best of the best. We have 2 biochargers. We have 6 low power PEMFs. We have a high powered PEMF. We have some different neuro acoustic technologies. We have ordered water for the nano bees. a very important technology that we stack with things. Today also, like, the stacks is where I'm really seeing a lot of the magic. Everyone's time is money. Everyone wants to try to get the most things in at the shortest amount of time. Well, what we've found, because we have the InBody to quantify things, is when you are layering different technologies all at the same time being administered, and they're working within a different component of the cell, that's where the magic really happens. But it's also finding the correct technologies. You got to think there's hundreds of PEMF devices, there's hundreds of red light devices. The majority are junk. We also have like a full body lymphatic drainage device that's class 2. You know, other facilities will compare things like that to consumer grade technologies. We are definitely clinical. Everything that's brought in, I've vetted. Sometimes it takes me a couple years to vet a technology before we bring it in-house. And then when we bring it in-house, we test it. We test it on myself first and foremost, and then our staff, and then some of our VIPs before we launch anything on the website or anything like that. And then the collaborative portion is what I'm really proud of. I would say that we have the best of the best in each segment as far as the practitioner goes. So we have the same person. Her name is Yvette Brose, that was doing some body work with professional athletes. She's still in-house, but she's up-leveled her game so much to incorporate either a class 3 or a class 4 laser. She also does a technology called New Inner Chi when she's working with someone. It's kind of like a microcurrent that really works with the flow of the body, and she's magical at it. She still works with all the professional athletes. I mean, she has a really big following in moto and a lot of stunt guys and girls from the movie industry come see her. In NBA, the Super Bowl, so NFL, like she's all over the place. So she's in house, and then we have a nurse practitioner. His name's Michael. He actually just got his nurse practitioner degree, and he's doing incredible things with wellness IVs, peptides, all that great stuff. And then we have Danielle Palmer, who she was with us at our original facility. She, I would say, as far as frequency-based application, being able to teach and administer them, there's no one that compares to her. She's been trained by the best of the best all over the world. So she's been trained in Russia and in the UK and in the United States. And she's really found her own voice. She's actually known as the frequency therapist now, where she's still doing a Skinar device. That's the one from Russia. It's microcurrent. It basically, it speaks the same language as the nervous system. And then they talk to each other, right? So it really helps with that regulation, any nerve issues. And then also she's become, I would consider her and her partner, Natalie Sakamoto, the number one when it comes to the biomodulator. It's another microcurrent device, and there's so many different applications. It does a lot of nervous system work as well, but then also increasing cellular voltage on a whole systemically. That's a huge contributing factor for the body to be able to heal. And that particular technology, how we apply it at Ascent, we actually will run it in the CVAC pods as well. It's the technology that I can see the fastest difference in cellular voltage overall. Natalie Sakamoto, Danielle Palmer, and Christina Monet are all practitioners with those technologies. And we also have a way to quantify, similar to when I'm sitting down with someone, I'm using the InBody 970 to get those baselines and to reconfirm what we're doing is working. They get a baseline of voltage. So they do a MEAD assessment. It stands for Meridian Energy Analysis Device. It's our process, and they're going through so many different things to get that baseline. And then we're able to see, okay, you've been doing this technology with this over a couple weeks. Let's reevaluate. And the voltage always goes up. So you got to think when someone comes in with a diagnosis, like say the C word, right? Their cellular voltage is usually not even in double digits. So when you have a healthy individual, overall, the cellular voltage should be around 25. And not to say, so depending on what you're testing, the cells in every single organ are different, okay? So cellular voltage is going to be lower in some areas of the body than not. I'm talking on average. So all of the voltage within the body, when you take the average of it, it should really, truly be above 25. For a cell to be able to regenerate, for a new cell to be made, it's a voltage of 50. You're never going to be on average of 50. The highest I've ever seen it is 32. I've gotten myself up to 31 before. And the body will remember that and it'll stay, but as you, are exposed to toxins and as you get sick, the voltage is always gonna go down. Or if you have different things in your body, like, tooth issues, each tooth is tied to a certain meridian, and, it's pretty shocking when there's maybe a root canal in a certain tooth and the dead tissue wasn't removed, that actually leaks into the body. So getting those kind of things rectified is very important. Emotions play another huge role. One of the practitioners of the collaborative, her name's Leanne Lindsay. She's actually going for her PhD right now, and she is so intelligent when it comes to the subconscious. So she works with a technology that's a biofeedback technology based on your voice, but then also with her prompts. She helps people release past traumas so they can actually heal. And it's, I've done a couple series with her, and it was actually life-changing. I mean, we've all had traumas in our life. There's, most of us haven't had perfect childhood either. And so there may be some resentments or some emotions associated with that. For me specifically, and she was the only person that could actually get me to release that. Her business is called The Accrescent. She has an amazing podcast, but Leanne is incredible. So, and what we're really finding, it's this village, right? We actually also, I don't want to forget, there's two more people I don't want to forget, and Lord knows I'm probably forgetting someone. Dr. Allie Carlton, she was my personal ND. She's in-house. She's who we refer if someone needs to get those labs. She specializes in hormones, autoimmune, she's incredible. And then Kenna Limp, I'm so excited to have her part of the team. She specializes in a technology called F-scan, and there's an F-scan and Firefly. So F-scan is actually scanning the body for pathogens. So you think of mold, viruses, bacteria, parasites, candida. This scan is so precise that it will actually tell you the exact type of parasites that you have. And interestingly, like when families come in together, they're usually around the same animals, they're usually eating the same food, they have the same parasites. It's really interesting how exact it is. And then her Firefly actually has the frequencies to mitigate those. Because what happens, the body should be able to mitigate, but when it overloads, that's when bad things start happening. So she's been a huge accessory and complement to what we offer. She was one of the newer practitioners that we have in-house. And then my team, I mean, I could not do it without my team. We have Cynthia Camano. She had her own business called Newport Coast Wellness. She's really, really smart when it comes to detoxing and different supplement protocols and nutrition. She's trained in another diagnostic that we use called the Quest 4. It's another biofeedback, and it really just kind of looks at the stressors in the body and then anything that's not in balance. And then it's that biofeedback that actually gives you the frequency to put it back in balance. She actually makes tinctures with those frequencies in them so people can take them home. And then who else do we have? Oh, Miranda. She is my right-hand man at this point, or woman. She does a lot for me just personally as far as like what I need help with to make all of this run. And she's starting to do a lot with our branding and just our direction of where we're going and everything. She really helped me build out the Ascent Certified Technology platform. And then she's also on the floor, so she's becoming well-versed with all the technologies. We have Jordan on the weekends, and then Christina, who's also a practitioner. Christina Monet will help on the floor. Yvette helps on the floor sometimes, but she's getting so busy she doesn't. So we're really just this ecosystem of, I would say, heart-centered, like-minded people that our goal is to make sure we're helping people, not taking advantage of the situation, because there are a lot of sick people out there, a lot of desperate people. And being that I was one of those people 16, 17 years ago, I spent a lot of money on stuff that I was told that would work, and it didn't. Just people that wanted to make money. So all of us really take responsibility in what we're suggesting. It can be kind of overwhelming sometimes when you come into a place that has that many technologies and that many practitioners. That's where I love something like InBody, because we sit down, we get hard data, we have a conversation of where someone's at, and then we're able to quantify it over time. So ideally, someone's going and they're going to sit down with me, do an InBody. They're going to get a voltage assessment, the meat analysis. They'll probably meet with Canada to see what pathogens are there, and probably meet with Cynthia to see, where the stressors are. Ideally, that's what someone's doing when they get in to get the baselines. Next level, most people have their labs, but if they're not working with a practitioner to see where their hormones are at and, a lot of their blood markers, then that's when Dr. Carlton would get involved. But, I, for the most part, forever before we were the collaborative, I had my InBody 770 before the InBody 970 came out. And I would just be able to sit down and use that. It's actually become a really great indicator of where to start. Because if, you don't not want someone to come in and just be starting to be exposed to 17 different modalities. If they're feeling great, we're not going to know which one is actually supporting that area. If they start feeling worse, we're not going to know which one's doing it. So it's a very systematic approach and how we're exposing people to things. And I feel like it really starts with where they're at that cellular level, because if they're completely compromised and their phase angle is super low and their cellular permeability is compromised, typically their cellular voltage is going to be very compromised too. So we start with technologies that are going to affect that first. And then obviously mitochondria play a huge role. We have technologies that help induce mitochondrial biogenesis. We have technologies that help with proper protein folding. Proteins play a huge role. So it's a process, but what we've seen, even with diagnoses that Western medicine will say, you have 2 to 5 years to live and there's nothing we can do about it, and it's very fast progressive, we have seen people's progression completely stop. And not just one time, numerous times. But, depending on what diagnosis it is, obviously, there's a lot that goes with that. And we have to be very careful because I can't even talk about diagnosing, curing, treating. That's why we have practitioners like an NP and ND that we also have in-house to help support all of that.
Take me into a consultation with the InBody result sheet and what that experience is like for you.
Yeah. So I have the 970. I just feel like the extra bit of information and preciseness that it provides has really given me confidence when I'm sitting down with someone. The markers that I really care about most when I'm looking at an InBody, especially to get a baseline, is their phase angle. I love that the 970 actually breaks things down segmentally so we can see where their cellular integrity, I call it cellular integrity because people understand that, but cellular integrity and phase angle go hand in hand. So we can see where their cellular integrity is in their limbs. So right arm, right leg, left leg, and then their trunk. When the cellular integrity is higher in the trunk by a couple points, I feel like it's an indicator that the body's performing the way it should. When I see people really, really sick, we usually see all of those numbers very similar. And the only time I've seen the trunk lower was someone that had like a stage 4 cancer that had riddled their organs. For the most part, you see where the body is so smart, it's going to preserve the cells with most integrity for the organs because that's what's keeping you alive. And then the cellular integrity usually in the limbs, especially in the arms for most people, will be the lowest because you can live without your arms, right? Overall, we want to see everything high, but you always want to see the cellular integrity in the trunk higher. And, so that's kind of a really important conversation to have with people. We talk about this is the average, for women, usually we're seeing between 4 and 6, for men, 5 and 7. And then it just is going to serve as that baseline of when we can get, so say you're starting with a 5.8 as a female. And in a year, we've seen, it dip maybe a little bit, go up. When it's consistently going up and it doesn't go back down, that is true age reversal at the cellular level. Another thing that I love about the InBody 970 is the segmental extracellular water versus total body water, which is an indicator of inflammation. There's different ranges where we want to see inflammation. That is one of the markers that we see being affected the fastest with the technologies we have. Inflammation is the root of every single disease. So if we can actually start moving the needle on that pretty fast, then the body's going to be able to regenerate and regulate faster. Visceral fat also plays a huge role in health. It is another indicator of health. So that's something I go over with people. And then the InBody 970, I love that I can see how many pounds of protein are in the muscle because that's going to tell us if they're actually probably getting enough protein. Usually when people aren't getting enough protein, it's going to be without the outside of the range. And then mineral levels, I believe it's bone and blood, but we're looking at bone. It's a very good indicator because most of our clients are, I would say, above 40, the ones that are like members and they're coming on a consistent basis, 40s to 60. And so for females, especially as we age above 35, we want to keep an eye on where our bones are at. That's another thing that the InBody does. It, will tell us where the skeletal muscle mass is. Muscle is a huge conversation piece, what we're talking about, because it's one of the keys to longevity as well. When people are coming in with certain diagnoses of compromised muscle, it's also going to be serving as a baseline of, hey, this is where you came in. Look, you've actually gained. It might be insignificant, but it's a gain in muscle. Same thing we're seeing with like GLP-1s, like that's all the rage right now, right? Well, if you're taking too much or you're not taking it correctly or supporting it with high protein and some lifestyle changes, you're going to see it rapidly affect the muscle. And that's the last thing we want to see is muscle go down on someone. Yes, if someone needs to lose 20 pounds, 30 pounds of fat, and they're on something like that, it makes sense because it's going to help with a lot of these markers, but we also want to make sure the muscle's being preserved. And so it's just really served as a great tool. Another thing that I love is, most facilities around us don't have the 970. So people will go on to the InBody website and they'll search like, where's a 970 by me? And so we actually get a lot of referrals from that. So I love how InBody has actually put that in place. And then we work with a lot of local gyms that they have maybe a 270, but they really want to start seeing, okay, I want to see the protein in the muscle. And so they're sending a lot of people to us as well.
Talk to me more about community partnerships. You say you work with local gyms. How do you go out and find those type of partnerships, or what kind of agreements do you set up there?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're not actually going out and marketing that much they're finding us. So a lot of it's, introductions from our members that go to gyms. They're in Orange County, California is highly populated as far as like fitness and longevity and wellness. I mean, I'm doing so much consulting for people all over the United States and even outside the United States where these facilities that are based on technology just do not exist, or if they do, like there might be one within a 250-mile radius. Where in Orange County, I feel like things are popping up on every corner. What's going to differentiate, like, the legit clinical grade from not is the education. And so like that's where we're really, really tapping into right now to educate our communities, right? But then also consumers who are looking to either go to a facility and use it or purchase it, because the platform now serves for the distribution of every technology we represent. We've secured best manufacturer pricing on them as well. And there's so much more that comes along with it. So when people are finding us, I mean, you have to think we've been around for 16 years in our community. So we do have a great reputation and people find us just because of that, I would say. But early on, networking and getting out in the community played a huge role in it. If I wouldn't have done that, I probably wouldn't have made it through those first 5 years of not making any money at all because, it's one thing to break even and not make any money, but it's a whole nother thing. Like the first 2 years when I blew through, the $350,000 after everything was said and done. So and then Orange County, there are so many awesome groups. Like I still do some networking in regards to just different female entrepreneurial groups that have been really great for us. And the InBody's played a huge role because when I'm, introducing who I am, I invite people in to have an InBody analysis with me so we can just have that initial conversation. There's so much opportunity, I would say, working with the community. At this point, I feel like so many of these businesses that are referring to us are wanting to start incorporating or adopting some of these things, right? So we're working with a lot of people in the fitness space, hospitality, I mean, pretty much every sector, even like medical now. Integrative doctors have always been more open-minded. They're integrating things. And then full on medical, where I'm talking to medical institutions that are wanting to start a division of frequency based applications. And where I'm super excited about is, being in this space for so long, I know what's good and I know what's junk. And so to be able to share that, so a doctor who doesn't have the time to do the deep research and all of that, even with AI, it's still, there's so much to know. So I just feel like now is the time. And the reason I was probably brought into this space is to help be that voice so that when people are making these huge investments, because a lot of this equipment's very expensive. If it's legit, it's not going to be cheap. Well, I'd rather make an expensive investment that's going to work, that preserves my reputation, right? And takes care of our clients, than do something that's subpar, that's either going to break down because it's not made good, or you're not going to get the benefit or an efficacy of something that's legit. And so to be able to explain that, because there's a lot of good salespeople out there as well. There's a lot of money being spent on marketing. Red light, if we just stay in that category for 1 second, I don't even know how many hundreds of devices there are at red light. And at this point, there are so many manufacturers making claims when it comes to red light, of legit red light companies making claims that this is affecting you at the cellular level, and they have no science based on it. They're using generic science based on red light, right? But they're not using their specific device. And so when we bring something in, it's because the studies have been done on their specific device. The wavelengths, if we're talking red light, the wavelengths, the configuration plays such a huge role. I mean, you see so many of these beds have a canopy on them. For red light to really initiate that nitric oxide activation and get down to that cellular, or more of a tissue depth cellular level, your skin really truly needs to be within about a quarter inch of that. If you have a canopy over you, it's not going to affect you at that level. That's not to say that there's not some benefit. Chromotherapy has benefit. You can stand in front of a red light and there's going to be some type of benefit. Your eyes have receptors that are going to affect you on a cellular level. But if we're truly talking about the wavelengths affecting mechanisms at the cellular level, it has to be a specific configuration. And so that's really what we're going to start sharing coming up, is the difference between all of these other technologies. And as a consumer or someone that's going to be purchasing, these are the questions you need to ask. You don't necessarily have to go through Ascent, even though we have best pricing. I don't know why you wouldn't, but at least you know what to ask.
Tell me more about Ascent and what's that is like for somebody coming in that wants to learn more about how you can help them.
We're very, I would say, generous with our information, because truly we want to help people. Just like early on, why would I keep any of this a secret? When someone comes in and they want to sit down, we usually, again, with me, it's the InBody 970 that I start with. And without even knowing what they have going on, because again, we're not supposed to be talking about any type of disease, treating, curing. I'm talking at the cellular level. So I sit down and say, I don't know what's going on with you, and we can talk about that, like what symptoms and stuff you're feeling. But what I want to go over with you right now is what's in black and white, what's in front of me, and where I see opportunity, where I see that you're actually doing really good, and you might have some really good foundational things. Or, I mean, if someone's completely decimated, it's the conversation. Like, you got to be honest with someone. So there's that. So there's that consultation usually lasts between 30 or 45 minutes, and it just gives them an idea of where they're at. And then I'll go over, like, if it were me, these are the technologies that I'd probably start exposing myself to. We give them a tour and everything. And obviously we have different ways, our membership pricing, I would say, is obviously the most reasonable, but it's really truly reasonable as far as competitors and what I'm seeing out there that people are charging. And then my main role, I'm actually only at our brick and mortar now half the month. I go back and forth. I'm actually in Idaho right now. I go back and forth between here and Idaho, and my main role for a long time has been in the consulting portion of it. So for startups, for practices that are successful and existing, wanting to integrate this, they bring me on as a consultant. And then with that, as they're acquiring things, obviously they're getting the training. They're learning how to do things, either stacking things together for the best outcome, or if things can't be stacked, what order to do them in. Because I feel like sometimes you go into these facilities and they just throw everything at you, and then wrong order. And, people can actually get more sick and more fatigued for sure if you're not doing it properly. So my main role at this point is where my passion is, and that truly is in the education and the consulting, and then just setting up businesses for success. Like, I don't want someone to have to go through, their whole entire savings and all of the mistakes that I made. And so I feel like all of that happened to bring us here. And man, this is the craziest industry as far as the evolution and how much it's changed from 16 years ago. I mean, even how much it's changed from the last 2 years. And it's going to be constantly evolving. So staying on that leading edge and really just like, fostering the relationships with a lot of these manufacturers that we have. I've seen over the years people trying to go in and either reverse engineering something, right? You see that all the time in this space, or wanting to private label something. Why would I want to do that when these manufacturers have worked so hard to build what they've built? And if you really can distinguish them as the best of the best in each sector, and that's what we're representing, that's what we're always going to do. So many times people ask, are you going to franchise? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? This is what I love. Like I feel like for 16 years, I put my work in testing, and I'm still going to have my brick and mortar, mind you. I just have an incredible team to help run that so I can actually do this. I feel like in the end, this is going to be able to help more people because who I attract is also heart-centered, like-minded people, right? And so through those people, they're going to be able to help hundreds, if not thousands of people, and that's how it multiplies. It's not just for me having a center in California and a center in Idaho and maybe someday Texas. Like, I feel like I can help. I want to help billions of people someday if I can. And that's only going to be through just connecting with people that have the same vision.
Take me through that, what that looks like when you're getting to know a new clinic. What kind of things are you thinking about to help understand where they're at?
I think the most important thing, and, I have a background in sales. I mean, my first job was in sales and at a fitness club. And then in the mortgage industry, I mean, it was sales. And it was always about building the relationship, not talking specifically about my product right up front, actually listening to who's in front of me and who that person is. And I know that, sounds like, well, obviously, but it really isn't, because there's so many sales reps that will go in, oh, there's this integrative doctor and they don't have a PEMF right now, and just start spewing of this, where I actually like to take inventory of what are you currently offering? What's currently successful? How do we complement that? How do we up level what your clients are already coming in for? And so then it becomes that conversation. And I've found that I've had the most success with that. And then right out the gate, the return on investment's coming within a couple months instead of getting a technology that's completely different than the things they're doing. I mean, you can when I'm doing consulting, I'm usually doing it in phases, right? So you're here right now. This is where we're at as far as budget. We're going to get this in this phase. And like I have a specific stack that I usually like to work with, depending. And then once that's recouped, I mean, and we have all the performas and all of that good stuff. Once that's recouped, let's talk about phase two, how now this is going to complement what you've already have, but then also what you're already doing. That's where the magic happens. But then it's also knowing how the human body works too, right? How cells operate and everything. And then being able to have that conversation. It's a very different conversation from a medical doctor to a gym owner. You know what I mean? Like they're first and foremost focused on different things usually, and it's just a different way of talking. So I think it's also knowing just how to approach the situation and where someone's at.
Let's pivot the conversation a little bit. And let's think about human optimization. You've been in this game thinking about cellular health for so long, and you've created systems that have transformed people's health, and now you're helping other businesses do that. Where do you think this is moving? What's next on the horizon in human optimization?
I mean, that's a great question. And I don't even know that I have the answer to it because technology is evolving so fast. I feel like even my business coach will tell me, like, sometimes I can't get out of my own way because I think, oh, this is what I see for big picture. And then when I talk with him, big picture is so much bigger than what I could ever imagine. So I feel like anything is possible. I mean, especially I've been investing a good amount of money right now in AIM just because I know unless you understand how that works and can take advantage of it, you're probably going to be left behind in any industry. And so I just feel like, I mean, in a perfect world, they talk about these med beds or whatever, where someone has a diagnosis, they go lay in it for 10 minutes and they're completely healed back to their 20s with no issues. I think that that's actually going to happen. Also, with like things like peptides, and I mean, technology, I talk technology because that's my lane and I love to stay in my lane, but don't think I'm not doing other things like peptides and all that stuff. I mean, with where science is going and what we have access to, I think anything is possible. The only thing that scares me, because it's so important, is human connection. I don't think there's ever going to be a replacement for that, like to be able to sit down with someone, look in their eyes, give them a hug or a handshake after you're done, and then build that relationship over the years. Nothing's going to replace that. But I think you need to have a combination of everything, 100%.
What do you want your legacy to be looking back?
I mean, I'm still carving that out. Like I feel like I just kind of lean into whatever is. So many times I get downloads from him, and I don't even think we've touched on what the legacy is going to be at this point. I just keep leaning in, putting one foot in forward, and sometimes I'm running with my hair on fire, but I really want to be a part of and contribute my knowledge to this space. And I honestly just want to help people. And I feel like down the road, when people remember or if they talk about me, there's not going to be anything much negative to say. I mean, not everyone loves me, obviously, but I am a good person with good integrity. I'm honest, I'm transparent. And I feel like, I feel I've made a tiny little dent in what this space is. And I feel that I'm going to make a pretty amazing dent once I get in my own way. So like I have never really had a personal Instagram. I don't want to be on camera. I'm always saying no to things. And my team has really helped me with like pushing me to your knowledge. You're not going to be out there. You don't want to be an influencer. People can see that, but you not sharing your knowledge is actually a disservice. So I really need to just get outside of that, and not worry about, there's not going to be everyone that's resonating with me, but I feel like I have a pretty good base on what I know, that I can share and it can help people. And the people that aren't doing things for the right reason, or the technologies that are not, clinical or efficacious or proven, they probably aren't going to love me, but that's okay because I want to protect the masses.
I've known you for a little bit of time now, and I certainly admire your spirit and your ambition. And today we uncovered in the beginning, you were talking a lot about the risk and your resiliency that you had. And share more with me. How did you develop that orientation in life where you have the integrity or you have the resilience? What kind of things for you shaped that maybe in your early life or gave you that willingness to take that risk?
I mean, I don't even think I had a choice. It was survival mode. Pretty much took care of myself for since I was pretty young. I mean, obviously, I have a mom and a dad. They had me when they were very young, and just life was hard when you have children young. Sometimes, I say that, and I'm about ready to be a grandmother, but my daughter's a lot different than I was. I just feel like watching my mom suffer her whole life. That's not what I wanted. And so I feel like that really drove me and pushed me to not, maybe be a victim, or, bad things happen to all of us. And so in my head early on, I don't even think I gave myself an option to fail. I've always known that if I lead with my heart, and like, honestly, I do lean into God. This is not something I just talk about. When I start, because I also can be a controlling person because I want things a certain way. And in my head, I think I know what's probably the best. Again, I'm limiting myself. If I actually just turn it over to God and honestly believe that He has the best intention for me, that's when my life is incredible. And so, I've had some crazy times, and when I get down to my knees, and am just, like, ready to surrender, that's where the magic happens. So, I'm grateful probably. I think some of the hard times in my younger years actually are a huge blessing. That just like that diagnosis in my mid-30s, which was so scary, being a mom of a child that you couldn't even put clothes on. I never thought I could look back and say, "I'm so grateful I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis." My life would not even be even close to what it is if I hadn't had that diagnosis. So I think it's just always leaning into things and being grateful, and I also am someone that doesn't just settle. Like, I don't think I'm ever, like, really satisfied. Like, I wanna just keep pushing and pushing. I mean, yes, I'm also someone that would love to just be able to decompress for, a couple days and not look at the phone, but I'm also the person that really truly is never gonna happen. Like, I'm gonna say, "I told you I'm going off grid." I mean, I'll still go to the lodge where there's Wi-Fi and just make sure there's nothing catastrophic happening. So, I don't know. I don't know. It's just who I am. And, I am so grateful because my daughter has a lot of the same, um, work ethic that I do. Like, I see that in her, and motivation as well. So I feel like it was a blessing to go through a lot of the stuff that I went through.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
It's really incredible to look at challenges in life as a blessing because from that place, we have a new opportunity to be able to expand.
Yep. 100%.
What else do you want to share? Anything else on your mind?
No, I mean, I am grateful that you invited me on, and, I mean, anytime you want me to come on to talk in body, I'm such a huge fan. I can't imagine not having that specific device in our office. It's actually brought so much to clients. I mean, our members are doing it every 90 days. It serves as a huge motivator and an inspiration, and then also a reality check sometimes when people are like, "Well, I'm doing all this stuff. I don't need to eat good because, this is helping my inflammation." And then it's like, "No, you still need to make good decisions." So, no, I'm just really excited for, maybe a year from now, what everything's gonna look like because we literally just launched the Ascent Certified platform. In fact, you're coming on for our sales training today. So we launched with 22 reps all over the nation. I mean, just a couple months ago, Lisa Diamond built out an incredible platform and CRM. We're all still learning that, but I just feel like once we start really sharing and marketing, what we've all learned, and the collaborative just plays such a huge role too. I'm just excited to fast forward, even though I like to stay in the moment, but I also like want to see what is on the horizon. And I'm just excited to be a part of all of that.
So, we're going to share the link for the Ascent Collaborative in Costa Mesa, and then we'll also share the Ascent Certified Technology in the show notes. And yeah, what can people do if they want to get in touch with you
Yeah,
and
I mean,
experience more?
especially if you're a practitioner that's really looking to get into this space and make, educated decisions right out the gate. I offer a 15-minute discovery call with you just to kind of see where you're at and everything. That's on the ascentcertified.com website. That's where everything is for me. I love talking to entrepreneurs who, want to help their communities, and improve what they're already doing. So, that, and then also, if you're local in the Orange County area, I mean, we have people come from San Diego and LA too. We have people that fly. We're right by John Wayne Airport, the collaborative is. So we have people flying in from Vegas all the time. I mean, just short flights. So if, I would love to sit down with anyone and, just kind of look at where you're at a cellular level, have that conversation and, share what I know. So we're all very accessible. Feel like when you go onto the Ascent Collaborative website, you'll see, I mean, some incredible practitioners, and you can see what the facility looks like. It's interesting to me, and it actually is something that I'm very proud of. When someone comes into Ascent the first time, they're like, "This place feels like no other place I've been to. The energy is so high. It feels healing." And it does. It's not clinical. It doesn't feel like a hospital. We have a huge roll up garage door that lets fresh air in. It's not spa music playing. Sometimes it's country. Sometimes it's Christian music. It just depends who the DJ is in there, but it's always just super in the staff, always greet you with a smile. It's a very, very special place. So I would invite anyone in for a tour anytime.
Thank you for sharing. It's a
Thanks, Brad.
blessing to have you here today. Thanks for joining me, and hope you have a great day and trip into the mountains.
Thank you. I cannot wait.